Starting with this episode, we'll use a more realistic Flutter app instead of Dartpad. So, please download the starter project for this episode if you want to follow along with the code. At this time, you can ignore the error that you see for this project. We'll fix it shortly. This is a single-screen app that shows all countries in the world, with their capital, continent, and population. All the data you see here is contained in a JSON file in the project's assets folder, countries.json. In the data folder, there's a file called country.dart. This contains the country class that we use as the model class that takes data from the JSON file and shows it in the list view. At the top of the class, we declare the fields. Note that they are all final and non-nullable. When you call the country unnamed constructor, you need to pass all the fields, so that a new country object gets created, with all the fields already set. Now, uncomment the fromMap named constructor. And, as you can see, several errors appear on your code. Let's see what they are. Place your cursor on country in the constructor. The error tells you that final variables must be initialized. Basically, you cannot instantiate final fields in the constructor body. So, you might think that a possible solution could be just removing the final keyword for all the fields. And this may have worked before null safety, but not anymore. Place the cursor on country. Again, Flutter tells you that the non-nullable fields must be initialized. As you already know, we can make all the fields nullable, and this would solve the problem. But the question is, do you really want to make these fields nullable? In many cases, you want your fields to be final and non-nullable. So the answer here is no. A solution can be using the late modifier. You can use late when you want to declare a non-nullable variable that you will initialize at a later time. This allows you to have non-nullable and final fields and setting them at any time in your code. Of course, you must be sure that your variable is set before using it, otherwise you'll get a runtime error. Back to the code, add late before final for all the fields. And this solves our problem. And our code is safe as well, as whichever constructor we choose to build a country, we are sure to set all the fields before they get used. There's another useful keyword that you can use in your constructors. As you may already know, when you want to use named parameters in your constructors, you can use curly brackets. In this way, your parameters, instead of being positional, can be passed in any order. The thing is, in this way, Dart and Flutter will make your parameters not only named, but also optional. And we cannot allow optional parameters here, as currently all fields are non-nullable. The solution here is just adding required before the parameter. So now your parameters are both named and, well, required. Okay. Now the country class is complete. Open the countries helper.dart file. This contains a single method called getCountries that retrieves all countries from the JSON file. Uncomment the line that adds the country to the countries list. Now open the countries screen.dart file. This is the screen that shows the list of countries on the screen. And you can see there's an error. At the top of the country screen state class, a countries helper called helper is declared, but it's set in the initState method. This is not allowed, as helper is non-nullable. And this is a pattern that can happen quite often, especially when you are porting older code to null safety. You may already have guessed the solution. Just add late before the declaration and the error disappears. Run the app. As you can see, the list of countries correctly appears on your screen. But the JSON we retrieved for the country list file is perfectly formatted and complete. And this rarely happens in the real world. So, let's see how to deal with unperfect data next.